Does anyone know if Shannon's coming?
I haven't
Did
heard.
she say when she's in the office?
She didn't say anything today. Want me to text her?
Okay. I'll give her. We'll get started here in just a minute. We're waiting for one more council member. We'll give her a couple minutes, and if she's not here, we'll get started. We're not ready to start. Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. Welcome, everyone, to the Francis City Council meeting for February 8th, 2024. Sam, would you start with the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, first thing, the consent agenda will review and approve the check register and any minutes. Do we have minutes for
I don't know
January?
if you and Shannon responded.
Yeah.
Check registers in there.
Got that late 3 hours ago. I have a different document for that.
Swipe through it, it's there.
Is it?
I have a certificate of Office of the State Treasurer from the check.
Yeah, well, mine's with that, but it's all there.
I don't have.
Okay, maybe I'm lying to you. No, I am lying to you, it's not there.
Yeah.
See if I got it in my.
Well, I like to just tell stories.
Keep us
Okay.
on.
The minutes look fine if you.
Yeah, I read through at least part of them, but never finished it.
I read the response.
If you want, we can wait on the check register, we can do it later if you
We
want.
have a copy of it right there.
Yeah, I have a copy, but we'll have to pass it around and let everybody,
It's not in our inbox.
I found it.
it's not there.
I click on check register, I
It's
get
the-
the state treasurer.
Yeah. Almost there's the public entity resolution.
That's weird.
So let's just move to the next item and we'll look at this later. We'll just go through everything else. If everybody's okay with that. Okay, next thing, we'll go to the public comment section. We'll first start with,
Are you gonna approve the minutes though?
we'll just do it all.
The next meeting?
Well, no, later tonight.
Okay.
So we'll go to the public comment section. Scott Thorell, Chief Thorell with Suffolk County Fire District is here. Wanted to take a couple minutes, I believe, in this section, so we'll turn time over to you and then to any other public who wants to make a comment on something not on the agenda.
Thanks for having me, Mayor and council members. I just want to come over and introduce myself. I've been on the job about 2 months. I'm Scott Burrell. I'm the fire chief for the South Summit Fire Protection District, full-time. And we had a big change, as a lot of you know. Your taxes went up for the fire department. Also, we started our own EMS service. We're renting employees from Wasatch County for the first year. The necessity of that was that a lot of times the ambulance that was here in town was not here in town. And our city was running kind of things as a system. People were waiting for service and that wasn't acceptable. Our new system's in place. We had 4 calls in a row on Friday. We've had several that have been 3 deep, and we've been able to cover that without any lapse in service so far. So the system's working. Our plans are to build our department with our, I've been recruiting locally. That's another message I've come to deliver is that people want to be involved in the fire department, want to be involved in emergency medical services, especially to come and see me. There will be some full-time positions starting January 1st next year, probably higher in November for those. And I just wanted to offer myself, if you have any problems or questions or anything about the fire department, please let me know. I am your fire chief by law, the way that you guys set up the district here. So I want to be available to you and your community in any way possible. We'll plan on doing some more local public relations events for the snow months. So with that short time period in this home, we don't have snow. I did move up here. I'm originally from Salt Lake. I've got 30 years in the fire service. 15 of those I was also full-time as a flight paramedic for airmen. Did a bunch of, my last job I was doing hospital administration stuff, which was so fun. Glad to have a uniform back on. So, if you need anything from me or have any questions or problems, please let me know.
Perfect. Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. All right, any other public comment?
Me.
Right.
Thanks, Scott.
Bob Murphy, Chair of the Planning Commission. Just like your check register has issues, there's something that needs to be brought to your attention, and it's our Dropbox situation for our files for Planning Commission. I went on the other day to look some stuff up, and then I was looking for stuff in 2022, and there's no files, not even on there. So I looked down 2019, 20, and 21, and those files are blank. So I have no reference to go back and check what projects we approved, what details are behind them, the plans that are in them. 2023 and 2024 are fine. And the funny thing is, well, not funny, but 2 weeks ago I had full access, everything was there. So in the last 2 weeks, something's happened. I brought it to Katie's attention yesterday that she didn't realize, and then she said this falls on Suzanne and Antini. And Katie then said Dropbox was getting too full. So it went from that to, then I asked for access to the backup hard drives or iCloud connection to download back in. That doesn't exist. Katie told me, they don't have to keep those files because they have them in paper files in the office. That does us no good if we have to go to the office to look up stuff to prepare for meetings or whatever. Then I went and asked Antini and Suzanne. They were both unaware of the missing files, and they didn't know how they got erased. And Scott was there, he didn't know either. These files have been either erased by accident or on purpose. And if it was on purpose, who approved it? I have no idea. I asked, and nobody got an answer. The planning commission needs these files to be re-input to the original state. And I asked Katie about that, and she said she wasn't gonna do that. So Katie asked Suzanne if I needed a grammar request to access files, and Suzanne said no. So that was kind of crazy. The planning commission needs the files to go back at least 5 years. And after 5 years, 6, 7, 10, whatever, they should be put on a hard drive or a thumb drive, and then put in a secure box in the safe in the city office. So we always have them. And going back to the notebooks, to me, it doesn't give transparency to the public if they want to see these things, if they want to do a grammar request and look them up. I feel it's the planner's responsibility to archive any of the files and make sure that the planning commission has all the information that they need to be able to make the right decisions. And we should be able to go back and find these things, as well as you guys, or anybody for that matter. If you want to look up what, anything that has passed, to be past this, was this in there? When was the lighting code changed? All of those things. So that's it. Thanks.
Thanks. So I can respond to, I think, most of that. We don't know for certain why those files would have been deleted from Dropbox.
So I actually talked to Alakazam today.
But we think that, according to Alakazam,
Yeah, you were there.
Dropbox recently changed their user agreements and the way their system operates. And so we were operating on the free system. They no longer back any of that up. And so now if you want to have that much data stored on Dropbox, you have to pay a fee, or a user fee, to do that. And so during those discussions also, while I share your concern that it's, well, I guess not concern, I understand your reason for wanting to have those files in Dropbox. Dropbox is not the official record of the city. So Dropbox is merely a convenience, a place of convenience for the council and for the planning commission. So Dropbox isn't the official record. Dropbox is just a place where we can drop you the files. We don't have to have them. You don't have to have a binder of paperwork all the time for each meeting and all of those things. So Dropbox is literally just a convenience. The official record of the city is stored, is backed up. All of our city data is backed up to the cloud through Alakazam, the IT company that we use. We also have to maintain hard copies. So all of the records are still in existence. There's no lost data. Everything still exists. It's just not in Dropbox.
So I asked that. So can we get these files put back in, or do they no longer exist because they were Dropbox?
They all exist, but the likelihood of getting 5 to 10 years reloaded into Dropbox is pretty slim, because that's going to be labor intensive. We're going to have to redo everything. So I would say it's probably not going to happen. We can look and see if it's, if it's not going to be super labor intensive. That's a possibility, but right now I just don't know. Probably in the future, the best way, until we get either the paid service or get that system worked out, the best way is going to be for, if you want to maintain that file on for, to go back and look through it easily, probably the best thing for you to do is going to be to download them and save them on a local file on your device, which it doesn't take a ton of data, but
No, and I would be happy to do that,
That's probably the best option.
but I don't have access to do it. I have 24 and 23.
Right.
But from 22 on, there's nothing.
Right.
So,
We can look at getting them back, but I doubt we're gonna be able to get everything loaded back on Dropbox.
well, I don't need it on Dropbox, if I could get it in a file to put in my computer, that'd be awesome.
And that is correct, you wouldn't need a grammar request for records.
Just because he's on.
Yeah, because you're on the planning
Yeah,
commission.
well,
Will you clarify my role in records retention?
Yes, there was a couple of things I was working on that. So Katie's role in records retention is, there is no role of records retention except, maybe some plans and things. The recorder is the official record keeper of the city. And so all of those things, the official record is maintained by the recorder. And so, again, it is not the planner's responsibility to maintain all of those files and all those records. It actually falls on the recorder. But in this case,
It kind of does in each department.
to some degree, but the actual official record of the city.
Right.
Right, so I agree with you, yes. That being said, again, Dropbox, we've all been relying on Dropbox as a super convenient way to find all of these records. And I guess this is just a good reminder that Dropbox literally is just a convenience. It's a file that's made available for meetings, and that's really the purpose of it. So we can work on finding a way to get you those files if we need to, but don't depend on Dropbox to have an archive forever, because it likely won't. What else was in there that I didn't get?
There are some things that were required by the Open Public Meetings Act to keep a record of on our website.
Right.
So minutes and agendas, we keep that record. We sometimes put packets on there, we're not required to,
Right.
but especially when we're getting a new website, it's gonna be easier for us to add the packets. So
Right.
I think we'd like to do that.
Yeah,
So we
good
have
point.
that record, so it's completely transparent.
Yeah, good point. So in the future, once the new website's up and the new web host is up and running, our plan is to start uploading all of the packet for each meeting to the website so the public can access those at any time. They should, I don't remember, do you remember, are those archived? I mean, do they stay there a long time, or is it just gonna be one meeting at a time? I don't remember.
I don't know. We'll probably keep
It will
some.
depend on the new website.
Yeah.
Right.
Because the website we have now, they are, but I've seen we've done other ways that I think would work better.
So anyway, yeah, I don't know exactly what it will look like, but for each meeting, there will be a packet uploaded, so the public will be able to grab that, download it, save it, whatever, but it'll be there, at least for those meetings.
And the other thing with city records,
Yes,
no one but someone who's certified should be handing out any city records.
true.
So,
That's why I checked with Suzanne, because I just want to make sure we're doing things the right way. And
Right.
she knows how to handle those records.
and we really should get one other person in the office certified to do it. Right now, I'm the only one certified to do it.
Yeah, we've talked about that. Okay. And then, if you need anything else, whatever, just let me know. We'll figure it out. Okay, any other public comment? If not, we'll close the public comment section, we'll go to the public hearings. So the first one is the residential multifamily housing code text amendment. This is a public hearing. Katie's been working on this one. I'll turn the time over to Katie, and then we'll open the public hearing.
Thank you. So, I think that I will just go through the actual changes, instead of reading through my staff report, because if I read it all and then we go through the changes, it's like I'm covering it twice.
Right.
So I'm gonna just start by going through the changes and I'll explain it as we go.
Okay.
I think that will be the easiest way. So, the reason that these are coming up right now is because, we have never used this residential multifamily zone before. This is our first time that we actually have a building permit there. So some things were brought to my attention. I think I've discussed them with you a little bit, so you might have a little background there, but Anyway, let me just start going through it. I'd like to make this section of the zoning code similar to the other sections, like the same title. I just want it to look and feel the same. So that's why I'm looking at changing the title from multifamily housing to the RM residential multifamily zone. That's similar to how we titled the other zones.
Right.
And then you'll see that the sections are listed. There is a change in the title of one of the sections. Currently it's called the requirements for site plan review. I feel like this isn't accurate because we do not perform a site plan review on a townhome. If you look at the list, we'll get there in a minute, but let's talk about that when we get to that section. I think building permits more accurate for that one. Okay, so getting into the actual code itself. In our code, we usually use the term dwellings. That's what our building inspector says that they use in the IBC and the IRC. So I like to use the same terminology so there's no confusion. So where we've said before residential lots, I say dwellings. It really means the same thing. I think it makes it more clear, especially in this one, because in a multifamily situation, you don't always have lots. If you have an apartment, you have dwellings, you have like individual units. So I think that's more accurate terminology here, especially. Skipping down a couple sentences. Currently we said only lots previously zoned agricultural 1 or residential half may be eligible for a zone change to the residential multifamily zone. So what this means is we, other than the one zone that we have in the city, the one place we have an RM zone, we didn't really go out and say, oh, this is where we want residential multifamily. When we created the zone, we wanted people to come to us and ask for a zone change, and then we wanted to think about, does that make sense in that location? And we thought, okay, places that would make sense are where we already have a little bit of residential density. It's not it's a little bit higher density, so that was our residential half and our Ag 1 zones at the time. Since then, we have added the residential cottage zone. So to me, it makes sense that if we're considering properties that are zoned residential half and Ag 1, that we also include the cottage in that, because the cottage zoning is probably ones that are even more candidates, like they're probably more centrally located, closer to major roads and highways. Okay, so that's why I changed the terminology from spelling it out to using the codes that we use in the code, Ag 1, RH, or RC, and then adding the RC to that. So the next section, I felt like wasn't very clear how many dwellings, the density that would be allowed. Before. It didn't say, it just said up to 10 units. It didn't give like per acre, so I'm adding that in, just so that it's clear this was per acre. It's mentioned later, but I wanted to bring it up here so that it's clear here. And then with the bonus density, so when they created this code, they wanted to give it a bonus if the developer was incorporating moderate income housing. So they allow up to 16 per acre when incorporating moderate income housing into the 6 bonus density allowance. And I just didn't know that just saying incorporating it, well, what does that mean? Does that mean that one of the 6 additional units has to be multifamily, has to be the moderate income? I want to make it clear that all of them have to be moderate income housing. And I wanted to reference our moderate income housing code for deed restrictions. Any questions so far? Okay. this is kind of what I started talking about earlier, requirements for, instead of site plan, building plan review. These kind of standards are things that we will check for in a building plan review, not a site plan review. So it's having a separate kitchen and bathroom facilities for each dwelling unit. I felt like it wasn't necessary to say that they have to meet the parking code, because they will have to meet everything that comes into the city. That's one thing we check, that they're meeting the parking code. So that's a given. Separate utilities to each unit. I also didn't feel like it was necessary to say that they have to meet the building codes, or they couldn't be temporary structures as a dwelling, because that is a requirement already, that everything has to have a permit and meet the building codes, and that we don't allow someone to live in a temporary structure. So I don't think that's necessary. Each dwelling unit will have its own address, that's staying the same. And then taking out that they have to meet emergency and fire code access standards, that goes back into the building code. And of course, they have to meet the standards. And then finally, clarifying that a hard surface driveway or parking area, which is concrete or asphalt, must be installed for dwellings. So those are the changes so far. And then this dimensional standards section is really similar to the table we had earlier. So I'm using the exact same wording. The maximum number of dwelling units allowed is 10 units per acre, and a maximum of 16 dwelling units per acre are allowed when all bonus density allowance units are restricted per section 1755 moderate income housing. Okay. Lot requirements, and I wanted to clarify this is for dwellings and main buildings, because there is a section after this for accessory structures. So this is the main ones. So setbacks, and this is what I've talked with you about before, you might remember. So front yard and side yard setbacks previously were 30 feet from the property line, and or 60 feet from the center line of the right of way, whichever is greater. In this case, because a lot of times we have a private driveway in a multifamily area, it doesn't really make sense to say from the center line of the road, because that layout might not be there. It's not required. So we're proposing 20 feet, and I'll talk about this a little bit more in a second. And then for side yards, going from 12 feet to 10 feet from the property line. And for rear yards, from 25 feet to 20 feet from the property line. So why are we looking at changing the setbacks? The reason is because I mentioned, and this was our first time having a plan check come in to the zone, and the plans that they brought didn't meet code, didn't meet the setbacks. So I let them know that they would need to resubmit, and they told me, okay, we can do that, but we're gonna have a different architectural look than what we've already submitted. So I asked them to show me kind of some visuals of what this could look like. So if we have the setbacks that we have in place right now, they can build townhomes there. They can do a product, but it's going to look more like this, kind of more the row home look, where every unit is the same. That's what they could fit in the setbacks that we have currently. If we update the setbacks to the same that we use for townhomes in our conservation subdivisions, then this is the similar to the product that they're planning to put in. This is the plans that we actually, similar to the plans we received. So there's more differentiation in the fronts and how they look. So Jeremy and I talked, we felt like this would be better for the city, and we decided to start this co-text amendment. So, because we feel like for the city as a whole, this is a nicer product. Yeah.
Well, and also it's not making sense to me.
Okay.
If, oh, I see, never mind. I
So,
ran it through my head and it makes sense now. It went through a second time.
okay, good. I'm just gonna finish up by going back to my staff report. the planning commission did review this item at their January meeting. They're forwarding it to the city council with a neutral recommendation. So there were 4 planning commissioners present. We had a 2-2 vote. They wanted to forward it to you. So 2 of the commissioners did not want the setbacks to change, but we're fine with the rest of the changes. My recommendation is to discuss the proposed amendment, make any changes that you feel like are needed, and then if you feel like the amendments are in the best interest of the city, approve them. If you feel like we need to work on this more, then table them. Or if you feel like it's just not in the best interest, we can deny it. If that's what you'd like to do. So this is a public hearing item, and we did notice the hearing.
Okay. Any questions to start with before we open the public hearing? Okay, we'll go ahead and open the public hearing on the residential multifamily housing code text amendment. If there's any comments from the public, please step to the lectern, state your name, and we're happy to hear your comments. Okay, seeing none, we'll close the public hearing and bring it back to council for discussion, etc. Any thoughts on code text amendment? Or the,
Well, I have one, did I'm assuming this is for the Ivory Homes project.
It is, yes. For
Was
Francis
the question
Thomas.
ever put forth to them is why they couldn't keep that aesthetic or that architecture? You just make the unit smaller to fit our existing setbacks? Why does it have to be flat?
So, when we talked with them, they said what they would do if we don't change the setbacks, they can still build. They're going to take the units that are the smallest and do just those ones over and over and over again. So you can kind of see it here. It's like the one that's set back the most. You do this one. And Ivory is home here, so if they would like to speak to that, feel free.
Sure, I'm happy to. I think no public comment is in the room, so.
no, go ahead, that's fine.
Thank you, Katie. So,
Will you just state your name?
of course, certainly. Peter Young, Burles with Ivory Development. So when we developed the development agreement and site plan, we showed certain setbacks that that were approved. When our townhome building group went and submitted permits, they did it based off of these plans, which we have done in several communities, and then recognized that they were outside of the setbacks. So with discussion, we said, that's fine, we can make it fit. We would just be taking more setback unit than just repeating that. But we think this is a better looking product. If there's anything that can happen, Katie was looking at making some changes to code just to make it fit with, as she had mentioned, just get wording together and get other things together, and thought that, well, these are the same standards that we have in our current, our other current code, which allows townhomes. So we could see if the city council is looking to replicate these. We really don't necessarily have a dog in this fight. We like this product more when we can differentiate the units. But like we said, we can take one unit and we can just repeat it for this. And then we have other phases of townhomes that are coming in later, and that we will be able to make sure that those fit. But we'd love to do this product. We don't have to. If the city's interested in doing something like this, this is something we'd like to do, but we're willing to do the one unit and just repeat.
Thank you.
So you're saying that the one unit that steps up or is more square footage than the smaller, the one that's set back.
It is, yeah.
So you're gonna have 2 different square footage.
So we'll have 2 different square footages to have.
Perfect.
What's the reason the 2 codes are different? Just because they're put out at different times and that's what was decided, or?
You're talking about the conservation subdivision? I really don't know. the reasoning. I think when maybe Scott remembers, but I think when, I did look back at the minutes because I was curious myself. And from what I could see, when they created the residential multifamily zone, they thought it would be a good idea to have the same setbacks as residential have. And then when they did the conservation subdivision, they realized that the lots were gonna be smaller. And so in order to fit homes and townhomes on the lots, they would need to reduce the setbacks. So actually, when I first looked at these, I just thought, okay, townhomes, and then it just went back to the normal setbacks I use on townhomes, which happen to be in the residential side, the conservation subdivision, and then I had to remember, oh wait, this is different. So for me, as a planner, I think it makes it my job a little easier to have the same ones and to have, all townhomes having the same ones.
Right.
So I think, something to consider is, we have this concept in front of us that sort of, got us thinking about different options as kind of the catalyst for this conversation. But really, this doesn't need to be the deciding factor, if that makes sense. What we should really be considering is, okay, when you're talking about a townhome, it's a smaller product on a smaller lot, does it make sense to have a larger setback or a smaller setback, in order to encourage the type of product we would like to see? And if that benefits this project, great. If it doesn't, great. Really, the goal should be, okay, what actually works the best for this type of product in this type of zone on this type of lot? Does it make sense to have a smaller setback or not? Regardless of the impacts to this specific project.
Yeah, I think we've talked about many times, we don't want to cater code to specific project.
Right.
But I mean, it makes sense to me to keep them the same. I don't know why you'd want them different, just adds confusion to the whole thing.
Yeah. Well, and to me, to some degree, and this is just, I guess my pea brain thinking about this, but it almost makes sense in my mind to have a little smaller setback on a smaller lot like this, so that you can get, what am I trying to say? You can maximize the amount of living space that you can put in a smaller lot, I guess is what I'm saying. So that provides a little more varying product. You can have some smaller ones, you can have some bigger ones that would meet maybe two separate demographics as well. But I don't know, does it really matter that much? 20 feet versus 30, I don't know, 10 feet might make a big difference. That's really probably another bedroom. Small one maybe, but I don't know. But anyway, to some degree, it makes sense to me to have a little smaller setback in a situation like this. But I'm not
Well, I think it
really
gives us,
attached to either idea.
I think it gives us more options. Just all together,
Yeah.
but I don't know. It makes sense to me that we want them the same as well. If there's no major reason why they were different, other than, well, it's a smaller lot, should probably have a smaller setback, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I don't know of a specific reason. But
No, I think like Katie said, is when we did the residential multifamily, it was kind of, it's the first time it's here, didn't know too much about it, first time we're dealing with it, let's just keep the same setbacks that we have standard in the residential house. There was not much thinking other than that, really.
Right.
But then once we got looking at the conservation subdivision and how it's gonna lay out and stuff like that, that's when they said, let's do 20 versus the 30, so.
So this, just to make sure everybody's clear, this would then make the setbacks the same for all townhouses in the city, regardless of whether it's a conservation subdivision or a residential multifamily,
Yes.
right?
It will,
So it
yeah.
standardizes that setback.
It does standardize it.
All right. right, well, any other questions, concerns, thoughts? If not, I'll take a motion.
All motion to approve the residential multifamily housing code text amendment.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Do you want to do the ordinance with it?
Yeah. Sorry. Don't mind me, I'm just messing everything up here. I want to just change your motion. to
Yeah, all motion to
this.
approve Francis City Ordinance number 2024-04.
I'll second.
Okay. The mayor is aye. Shannon's not here. Sam?
I reluctantly, but I,
Clayton?
Aye.
And Clinton? Aye. Okay. All right. No, you can. But
Abstain.
No,
I'm just giving you a hard
no, I
time.
know that, and the thought crossed my mind, but I like the idea of standardizing the two.
Right.
I didn't know we had two different, requirements in two different zones.
Sure.
To make it easier. But I was coming, my initial thought was Clayton's first one is, we have our standards, and we have them set there. Why do we always have to be the ones to change? But I can see the benefit to it, to make it standard between everything across the city.
Sure. All right. Next item is conservation subdivision code text amendment. This is also a public hearing.
Okay,
And we'll go to that. Katie,
okay,
staff
so,
reports in your Dropbox.
yeah, this is one that we have discussed quite a bit up late, but not for a little while. So we discussed the moderate income housing requirements for the conservation subdivision townhomes in several meetings. The current code requires that each townhome approved within a conservation subdivision, a unit in development must be deed-restricted to provide moderate income housing. With rising construction and interest costs, developers of the Hart Crossing, Stewart Ranches, and Hidden Meadows conservation subdivisions requested that the city reduce or eliminate the requirement for deed-restricted moderate income units. And back in November, the city council agreed to reduce the deed restriction requirement for conservation subdivision townhomes from 100% to 20%. That's where we ended up last time. So if you remember, there were kind of a few components to this where we would change the development agreements for certain subdivisions that we talked about here. And then another part was changing the code to make it the same going forward. So this is what we're doing tonight, is changing the code going forward based on that decision. So it's a pretty simple amendment. In the past, we just said for each townhome approved in a conservation subdivision, a minimum of 0.2 units in the development must be deed restricted to provide moderate income housing for chapter 17.555 FCC. So, let's see, the planning commission recommendation, they reviewed this item at their December 7th, 2023 meeting. They are forwarding it to the city council with a unanimous negative recommendation. Overall, they expressed a sentiment that the developers should be held accountable for what they have promised. They feel that reducing the 100% deed restriction requirement for townhomes to 20% is too much of a reduction. My staff recommendation is to discuss the proposed amendment, considering the planning commission's recommendation and public comments. And then if you feel like it is beneficial to the city, you can approve it, or you can go back and we can talk about this more if we need to. Public hearing is required for this item. And we did notice the hearing. This is a legislative item, just like the last one, so it's completely up to the discretion of the city council or planning commission. That's it for me. I do have a public comment letter when we get to that portion.
Okay. Any questions from, or comments from council before we open the public hearing? Okay, we'll open the public hearing on the Conservation Subdivision Code Text Amendment. Same thing applies. Anybody with comments, please step to the lectern and tell us your name. Tell us what your thoughts are.
Kimberly Lawson, member of the planning commission. You already know how I feel about it because she's told you. I don't think 100% to 20. I mean, that's like chopping your body off at the legs, right? Like that's like from the head to the knees. It's just too dramatic of a difference. It's too much of a change. 80, maybe 50, but 20? I just think that we're telling all of our future children, sorry, you're gonna have to live in Eagle Mountain. Because just, even the median income, I mean, how are we gonna afford that for our kids, right? I mean, hopefully things will change between now and then, but we're really limiting. It'll be a fight for all of our kids to who can get into that 20%. That's all I have.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Okay, seeing none, we'll close the public comment.
Can I please read this letter?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
We will not close the public
I didn't
comment.
want to step in, but someone else wanted to say.
Yeah, please, I forgot about that, sorry.
That's
please.
okay, no problem. Okay, this letter was from Jennifer Gaia. She said, and she's a Wild Willow resident. She said, I'm writing in regards to the dimensional standards for future development in Francis. I am against smaller lot sizes for future development. The smaller lots create too much density, straining our resources in our valley, even in cases of creating affordable housing. These homes are not affordable. These homes are built, straining resources and utilities, then resold at unaffordable prices. I'd rather see larger lot sizes, fewer homes, less density, and preservation of open space in Francis. So I think, like when we noticed this public hearing, we referenced the section dimensional standards. So it doesn't seem quite related to this exact issue, but I think it would be, it's a good comment to keep in mind.
Sure.
So.
Okay,
But she did send it in regards to this one, so I just wanted to make sure we got it in.
perfect, thanks. Okay, any other public comment? Okay, now we'll close the public comment. And bring it back to council for discussion. Any thoughts, questions, concerns?
Oh, yeah, this is not what we talked about, in my opinion. Like, the discussion wasn't we're just gonna slash 80% off. It was that the moderate income housing is not affordable. And so if we're gonna do it, yeah, we're gonna give them a break on how many we do, but it's gonna get a lot more restrictive so that people can actually afford it. Like, the whole point of that, hashing that out for 2 months wasn't just to say, oh yeah, go ahead, you can go ahead and sell 80%. Like, I was ticked that he even sold it too. So I think this is a moot point. I'm not voting for that because that's not what we discussed. We discussed making them so that they were like more deed restricted because it sounded like he could sell them to whoever, and they could flip it for a profit a year later if they wanted to. That's not.
Right, so we discussed, I think I know where you're coming from on this. So in Hart, they didn't have a requirement to have any deed restricted in the development agreement for Hart. They didn't have that requirement to have any deed restricted. They had a requirement that when they sold it the first time, it had to go to someone that's making between 80 and 120% of the AMI.
Right.
So remember there were kind of like the three different, and they were all a little different. The subtleties were like, worked hard. Like, I think they're just confusing, honestly, because they were all handled a little differently.
So what does deed restricted mean? Where's that section that tells us what you have to do?
So yeah, we have a whole section that I'm happy to pull up that talks about what that means. So deed restricted means that it has to be sold to someone for 25 years that makes 80 to 120% of the AMI.
I think that's too loose. I think we should change that code because that's still the $700,000 townhome. Like, that's the point of doing this is so it's affordable. That's not affordable for anybody. So we either need to get way more strict on that or leave this one alone. And even leaving this one alone, I don't think is very effective. I don't think it. The
Yeah,
moderate
so-
income for Summit County is insane.
I think you might remember, like, Brad was proposing 10%.
Yeah,
Remember that whole conversation? So that's where this came from, because we ended up with 20.
right.
So that's how it looks in code, and if that's not what we want to do, that's fine, we can revisit this.
Right. Well, and remember that this deed restricted, well, maybe I might need to refresh on this. There were deed restricted in Stewart Ranch, is that right?
So Stewart Ranch is, separate again.
Right,
So they, remember we approved the moderate income housing agreement with them, or the affordable, I can't remember the exact name of the agreement, but we had an agreement where we negotiated 8 of the units would be deed restricted, meaning this. So that one we,
That was a couple of years ago,
agreed to approve that. Well, we talked about the negotiation a couple of years ago, but then it came down to signing it just recently, back in November.
that's right.
So then we ended up with 8 of the 23 is what I remember there. But the code, I don't know, I can't remember if you guys were on the council then, exactly the timing. But we did change this code before because it wasn't very clear.
Right,
And so, we had some people pointing out that it wasn't clear exactly what the expectation was, and our attorney felt like it wasn't fair to hold them to that standard when it could be interpreted differently. So that's why Hart and Stewart's have a little bit different requirement than what we're doing now, or what we have required, which is all of them.
Mhm.
Hidden Meadows is under this requirement, but they decided to take out all the townhomes altogether. So they won't have townhomes, so they won't be doing this. But in the future, we want to make sure we have a very clear standard about what's expected.
right, right. Well, so, I mean, maybe the best option at this juncture is to just wait. And I think that's something we can certainly do. We want to get this right. One thing that I'm thinking about, and this is just shooting from the hip kind of a thought, because I'm not convinced that this number is the right number by any stretch, but one thing I'm thinking about is what happens if we say, okay, we're going to stick with the 100% for the townhomes in these developments. Does that then just create a situation where they don't do that, they don't build that product, and then we're still stuck with a development that doesn't meet our goals? Does that make sense? Like if we say 100% of the townhomes have to be deed restricted, then they do what is being proposed in that development. Well, okay, then we just won't do any townhomes, and now nothing's deed restricted, and we just have great big trophy.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's actually the thing, but I'm just thinking about that now. And I worry that by setting that number too high, we might.
That was the conversation. I don't
Put
know,
off another
it's
spot
like back in
Facebook.
November, but
Right.
I do remember like that was one of the main reasons we landed on the 20, is because we felt like, it seemed like the council was discussing that if we set the number too high, then we won't have any.
Well, that was kind of the compromise was,
Right.
hey, yeah, you're not gonna have to do as many, but we're gonna be a little more strict on the ones that you do build. Because if you just go, look, my opinion is the moderate income, it doesn't mean anything, it's too high. We should change that to something else anyway. But, yeah, if you don't have some kind of compromise in there, there's no incentive for them to do it.
Right. Well, and yeah, so I mean, I agree with you, the what's considered moderate income based on the median income here is still, like you say, a $700,000 townhome, which no one can afford, not us regular folk anyway. And, so that is a concern I have by going too large. The one good thing though is a deed restriction actually requires that it stays at that, versus what we've done in some of these others where it's only the first time it's sold.
Okay.
Or, you know, so at least the deed restriction does have those two, but currently it still only meets that 80 to 120% of the median income, which is still pretty darn high. So, and I don't know, does anyone have some insight? Can we change that restriction to something more to a lower income than the median income, or is that sort of something that's set by the state? Or, I mean, I don't know.
That's the other problem with the state.
Yeah, so,
So,
I mean,
if we can, cool, but if we can't, I don't know.
yeah, so where Francis is less than 5,000 people right now, we
Right.
have more flexibility in how we handle moderate income housing. But it has been a really big issue with the state legislature, and they're requiring bigger cities to adopt certain, in their general plans, they have to say, we're gonna take these measures to get more moderate income housing.
Right.
We don't have to do that, which is nice, but it doesn't mean that we don't have an affordable housing issue, we absolutely do.
Right,
And it's probably something that we should look at, it's still an important issue here, and the best way to tackle that, I don't think any of us have the answer on that. I think there's a lot of different ways to look at it. We require, if we say, okay, all the townhomes have to be like low-income housing, one, we might not get a product that we like, and two, we might not have anyone who wants to do that. Like, we might just won't build them at all. Moderate income.
Which maybe that's a good answer too.
So not
We're down,
affordable.
so I don't
Can't think
know.
about
It doesn't solve the affordability problem.
So expensive, but it's less, it is more affordable than a lot of the homes we're seeing being built right now.
Right.
So even though it's still not really affordable, it is a little bit more affordable.
That's what I wanna figure out though, is how do we help
Yeah.
kids stay here? Like,
Right.
Yeah,
Okay, so, I mean, well, I guess first off, do either of you have anything to say on?
Well, I do kind of remember the meetings we had, and Katie touched on it. Brad was here, we were talking, and I have to admit my ignorance that when we talked about this and we agreed to the 20%, I was focusing on Harbor Crossing. Okay, Brad was saying, like Katie said, he mentioned 10%. This 0.02% of the units have to be, well, we calculated that at 15%, we got 3 units that were deed, and Brad suggested we would go back to the developer and request them to be deed restricted. Well, I thought, well, 3.5 units didn't make sense, so let's go 20%, we could get that 4th unit.
Oh, right.
And in my head, I was focusing on that. And again, that's my ignorance, because that code text can't be changed to just a specific project. So I'm in complete agreement with Kim and Clayton that 20% is way too much of a cut, if we decide to cut it. But then on the same token, Jeremy's point is, if we still keep it at a high percentage, they're just not gonna build them. But that's a topic for another meeting. I do agree, though, that I'm against cutting it down to 20%.
As it is right now, yeah, I think we need to figure out more what we want out of that in different areas, so. Okay.
Yeah,
So I will come, sorry.
yeah, I'm okay with some meeting somewhere, but, 20, if everyone else 20 is a little bit, a lot of it too much.
So, Katie, correct me on this if I'm wrong, but because we're in the middle of adjusting this code, if someone were to come with a development that they wanted to do this, they would have to just kind of be in limbo until we had the code decided, or do they fall under the old code?
so this is a great question for Brad, but I'll do my best to answer it, because I've had
Yeah, I'd ask.
conversations with him before about this, similar topics. So, they would have to build to what was currently in code, unless we do a pending ordinance we say we're working on it and we publicize that, which we haven't done for this yet, then
I
we
see.
can, basically, it's like a moratorium on this.
It's on that
type of-
specific thing.
On this specific thing, right. And you can use about 6 months to work through that, if we feel like we need to. I don't know if we need to do that or not.
I don't either.
Yeah.
I mean, currently, it's more restrictive than the proposed change, so it's, if someone came in with a project, they would have to meet 100% of those, and so maybe that's fine. So I guess, ultimately, what I'm saying, for council is, in this case, there's a couple of things we can do. We can table this for a later time, we can come up with different changes, we can send it back to planning commission, for, a different number, whatever we want that to look like. We can just flat deny it. Or we can vote on to pass this, which clearly is not going to be the case tonight.
My
So,
question would be, if we deny it, we revert back to our
it's just the
original
100%,
7%.
right?
Okay,
Yeah, which is really where we are right now.
right.
Because we haven't done the
So, yeah, if you just deny it, nothing changes. If we say, let's deny this code text amendment and send it back to planning commission for review, we can do that. Or we can just say, let's table it and come back with a different number. My recommendation is that we probably deny it and send it back for the review.
Or you could table it and do a work session with
Right.
planning commission and
Or,
the city attorney.
or we could do that, and that might actually be a better option, just get everybody together in the same room, get it all worked out. Find it out, and figure out what's best.
I really want and respect the planning commission's input.
Sure.
Um,
Well, if we don't, we shouldn't have them.
I know, they need to be involved. If sending it back to them and having them discuss it, come back, that, to me, that makes it a little bit longer process. If we do a work session, we're all together, and then we hammer it out and decide that night. I think that might be a more efficient way.
Well, I
If
don't
they're
think it
willing
has
to.
to be all of one or all of the other. I think you could actually send it back and have a work session anyway. You know what I mean? So,
That-
but I think what we're saying is the same thing. Let's get everybody in the same room and
You're
discuss it.
saying, like, let's keep
Figure
working
it
on it,
Yeah.
so to me, that makes sense to table it. We're not just gonna like let this die
Right.
and not change anything, we're still planning on working on it, it sounds like. So in that case, we probably table.
I like it.
Okay, well, I'll make a motion that we table this, send it back to the planning commission for further review and a possible work session.
I like it.
Second.
All right, moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye? Okay, that's unanimous. We'll keep working on that. Thank you.
Well, that
Oh, man, you don't have to
that,
leave.
that cleared the room.
Jeez, come on.
I got a comedy show.
Look at this agenda. We got a lot of fun left to have here. Jeez. Okay, next, public hearing on the general plan. Hopefully you've all had a chance to at least look through that. I looked through it, had like one or two small corrections and left it on my desk in the office, so.
I just had one.
I'm super helpful. But anyway, we'll go ahead with that. Right.
Okay, so I don't have a staff report because, that was enough writing for the actual general plan. So the planning commission has been working on the general plan for the last year. That was one of their primary focuses in 2023. As you all know, we did a survey. We went through the survey results back in June or July with city council. And based on those survey results, we updated the general plan. And we did it kind of section by section, and we did, the planning commission did get through that. And so they are forwarding to you a positive recommendation. So that's really all I have. It is a public hearing, the general plan, it's a public hearing.
Okay. Before I open the public hearing, I will say, I've reviewed everything except I have not read the entire history portion of it. I think that it should be said publicly that the planning commission has done a great job reviewing this, looking through it, there's a lot of really good things in here. I think they've done a very thorough job at addressing the issues that we face here. I think the plan seems to meet our goals and kind of our vision here. I think, again, it should be stated publicly that this looks really good. They've done a good job. We appreciate their work on this. Outside of that, we'll open the public hearing on the general plan. Antini, anything?
Anyone?
Right. If there's no public comment, we'll close the public hearing and bring it back to council for discussion. It's all you guys.
I just wanted to ask one thing, that's in the water system. Policy E, prohibit private culinary water systems. What's the reasoning for that? I'm just curious.
We just don't want a bunch of wells throughout the city.
That's it? What's the reason for that?
What's the reason for that?
Yeah,
Because, we drill a well, we spend lots of money, as you were aware of, to drill a well for public drinking water. And if somebody drills a well in their house, the water line's going by it, we're losing money because they're not connected. There's possibilities too that if a house doesn't have to drill it to the same specifications as the city does, public water supply, if there's some kind of cross contamination, that somehow they connect to our water line and their water gets in, it could contaminate our whole system. We don't like wells in our source protection zone going down into our aquifer and maybe cause problems there too. So the main reason is that the city spends lots of money to put that water system in. And if 2 people out of 10 in the city don't connect, that's just more that the rest of the people have to pay for those. And water lines going by them. The fire hydrants are there for their protection too. They're not paying the water bill for that. So it's just things like that. So we put a lot of money into our water system for the public to use. We want the public to use it.
it's the only thing I remember having a question about.
I'll get with you on mine. Mine were like a couple of little like typo things or something silly. There was nothing major that I can remember.
I thought they did a fantastic job, like you said. And I particularly like the history portion in the back, being somebody that wasn't born and raised here. That was very informative to me. And I would think that newer people moving in, that again to the valley, if they read that, that's very informative.
Yeah, the Camas Valley History Group actually submitted that.
Did they?
We had a really short history in our last general plan. And almost every section of the general plan was shortened and was simplified because we really want the important things to come out. And we want to be able to reference those when we have like an annexation coming in. But the history portion actually got quite a bit longer because we did want to tell the story. So.
And you know, I think that's important. I appreciate, like saying that portion exists and that it's larger. I think most everyone knows about it by now. I think preserving that history, preserving the traditions that are the Francis and have made Francis what it is today, and why people want to be in our city. Those are important to preserve because pretty soon things change enough that those things get forgotten, and a lot of people sacrificed a lot of things, blood, sweat, and tears to make this city available and give us a place to be. And I don't think that's any small thing. I think it's something that often gets overlooked in today's world. So I think that's super important. But I also think that the overall plan and, you know, thoughts and goals for what we see as a vision for the city, all of those things are very well thought out. And I think that those plans work toward preserving the very things that we want to preserve. So
I had one, there's a couple places where it talks about preserving the residential, like the scenic views, beauty, one part that's obnoxious weeds. Are there, and I would just like to, just my comment is just those, I really like that part. I want to plan to talk about that more about making sure that homes in these residential areas meet the overall, this whole plan of keeping it beautiful. There's a lot of homes that, well, it's a problem that's been brought up several times, so I'd like to do more about that. And also, I really like the Dark Sky City Initiative. That's really good.
Jesus, guy. Wait, it's me? Oh, I was talking about my weeds, I like. Okay, so is this the time when we adopt the general plan?
Yeah, there's an ordinance to adopt, so,
Resolution.
sorry, resolution. Everything's already.
Yeah, the other ordinance we kiboshed, so
Don't worry about
we
that.
do have a resolution. All right. I'll take a motion on the general plan, and this is, resolution 2024-01.
I'll make a motion to adopt, is that the right word?
Yep.
Resolution 2024-01. General plan.
Okay, moved and seconded. The mayor's aye. Shannon's not here. Sam?
Aye.
Clayton?
Aye.
And Clint? Aye. All right. There you go. We now have a general plan. How about that?
I'll do the different plan.
Thank you. I really do think that's a huge undertaking, but great work. I appreciate it. That's okay. Okay. That's it for the public hearings. We'll go to the discussion items, and the first one on there is the bids for the city hall. Scott has given me some information, I believe, in Dropbox for that. There's
I gave everybody copies of this.
and some copies of the more detailed
I figured you wouldn't be able to read it.
records.
I know, sorry.
So we had 4 bids.
For the,
They vary in cost. I'll let Scott explain some of the details. From there, then we can talk about it. Go ahead.
all right, so, like Mayor said, we had 4 bids. Co-op Construction, Northridge, Construction and Design Bids Contractors. The bids, part of their bid, they turned in what they proposed to do the completion time. So you can see on there, they've got the bid price and then the completion time.
And that's what you see in Dropbox.
Yeah. And so, as part of the bid, when they originally turned in their bid, they just turn in the number to us. And then the next day, they submit their schedule of values showing how they came up with that number. So a couple of them turned them in yesterday and the rest of them turned them in today. And so after me and Jonathan with the architecture company reviewed these, there's some red flags that came up on the low bidder. If you look at the one that says Cobalt on the top of it, as part of their schedule of values, each of these items are kind of listed as things that they need to accomplish. And if you go down to where I've got it highlighted, like one of them says plans call for 1 fire extinguisher, I included 3 per experience. Well, actually, according to the plans, 3 are required. So he's kind of put in a condition on his bid. He doesn't really give us a price for it. He just says, I've included them, but it says only 1, but I think there's 3. But one of the big things that pops out is on window treatments, he says none. And if you look at the other page, I've got the spreadsheet. If you go down to that section for window treatments, division 12, you look at everybody else has submitted numbers on it. And according to the specs that were sent out and the addendum, they require window treatments. So he's either not read the specs correctly, he's saying none, but they are required. So That's kind of a red flag. And then on the next item, he says, the price for this is included in the cabinets, budget set on mid-grade countertops, waiting for spec. So he's kind of conditioning the spec, saying, hey, I'm giving you mid-grade because you didn't give me specs, but we did give him specs. There was, they all complained there was over 700 pages of specs given to him, so maybe he didn't read them all. So those are a couple of the red flags that have popped out to us.
The other thing that they didn't do that is required, so to be clear, this isn't something that we're just pointing things out on everything. This isn't anything more than that. They're required to list their subcontractors, and Cobalt did not do that.
Correct, yeah. So if you look at the ones behind for like Webster, Northridge, and Design Build, it's got the sub-supplier, and it shows who they're gonna use, whereas they didn't submit any of that. Their timeframe is pretty aggressive. The architect was thinking more around 36 weeks. But the biggest red flags is not reading the specs, and what else did they miss by not seeing this? They are about $300,000 below to the other bidders, but with that, not submitting everything, that pretty much rejects it because it's not complete. So then that takes us to Webster Construction. As the second bidder, you can see their bid. If you kind of look at his numbers, up at the very top of the page, the first thing pops out is for the division general requirements, he only said $20,000 versus everybody else is around $150,000 to $200,000. So talking with Jonathan, he kind of looked at that, but then if you go to the second page, where it says the percent description for like the liability insurance, building risk management and all that. If you look at Rusty's bid, he's at $543,000, where everybody else is around $330,000, $400,000. But if you go down on the kind of bottom of that, it's general condition and fees. What I did is the general requirements are things where the contractor puts in for their bonds and stuff that they have to do, where this bid item, if at the very first of the project, they wanted to be billed, they could bill us for that full, say it's Cobalt, they could bill us for the full $156,333, get all that money up front, and then they have that money up front, whereas Rusty, he only put 20, he can only get 20 up front, whereas the fee, where his is so much more than the other ones, his is 369, that one we only release as a percent of the project is done. So he puts more of his money that he doesn't want to get it up front, he puts it where he can get it maybe more towards the end, but they're still getting pretty close to the same thing, it's just how they did it. So that, once we looked at that, that wasn't a concern that came up because it kind of goes to the same thing. It's not really a concern. It makes it a little bit rougher on him because he can only bill that as a percentage of the project complete versus these other guys can bid that up front. They want to get the majority of the money.
Right.
Does that make sense?
I have a question on Rusty's.
Yeah.
He has no money in for a bid bond. Not requiring him to do a bid bond?
Yes, and that's kind of the reason I gave you is everybody's proposal breakdown. He put his bid bond, he includes that in the profit and overhead, the $369,000. So there is a bid bond, and he did submit a bid bond.
Okay.
We have the bid bond, but he didn't put the cost there. That's part of his fee.
Okay. And as well as his liability insurance?
Yes.
Okay.
That's all included in the profit and overhead. And that's, the spreadsheet here where there's a zero, you kind of got to go look at some of these because a lot of them, they include it in the windows or they include other things in different places. And they specify on here, but I could put that in my spreadsheet because then it would have given me a non-value and
And where did Rusty cover his security? Safety and security.
Safety and security.
He's got zeros to where, well, two of them do. But is that still in his P&L? He included that over here? Okay.
What item is that, Sam?
2800, Division 28. First line item, safety and security.
Yeah, included in P&L
Where do you see
on
that?
this one.
Oh,
So you gotta go to the next page.
got it. So look past my notes.
And then kind of another thing that pops up to us is the window item. If you look at, well, it's not the doors, it's the doors and frames. So if you go to Division 800, where it says doors and frames, if you look at their numbers, everybody's, between 82 to 170,000, and Cobalt is at 40,000. And the door requirement, they require a certain level of
The sound door
the
requirement.
sound requirement that if they don't meet that requirement with the doors that they propose, they have to tear it out and do another one. And so I think the other guys, Rusty even put a note on his thing saying, hey, I went with a really high door rating, and if we think we can meet the lower rating with the normal door and the rubber gasket,
No.
then we could knock off $100,000 here to meet that door. And so that's, this guy here just said, I'm gonna give him the lower door, whether, it works. If it doesn't work, then he's gotta do it, but it's just, did he read the requirement to know he has to do that, or is that what he's doing?
Right.
So there's just a couple of red flags that threw us out and said, hey, Cobalt isn't, they didn't submit everything they needed to, it doesn't meet our requirements. So Jonathan with Galloway and that, we're recommending that we award it to Webster Construction. The way that this is kind of bid out, we can go into, like we want to talk about the doors, and that we can negotiate with them and say, this is what we want to do, and then get a final contract price. But that's where we're recommending doing is starting work with Webster to get going.
My biggest concern is, you'll see, like, some of the items on Cobalt that we're calling red flags, they're not necessarily high dollar amounts. What concerns me is not following instructions, but more than that is, he's a third less time, which would be really awesome. But if the engineer's estimate is 36 weeks and everybody else is saying, well, we think 42, 44, 36, and he's saying, okay, I can do it in a third less time, that'd be cool, but is that actually realistic? And so it concerns me that there's something hiding in the background. Maybe not, but it makes me a little itchy, so. We could look at whatever, but anyway, that's kind of what I'm thinking.
So that's our recommendation. What do you guys think?
We've got a discussion here.
Well, I think at our prior meetings, we've discussed, we had an original budget. I think the Webster number's above it. Are we still okay?
So's the other one.
I got a recording. Originally, our budget was around 2.
That's what I remember.
When we did the engineer's estimate, it was closer to 3, but we said, let's get it out to bid, let's see where our, I'll let Suzanne speak to.
I'm not saying it again. What?
We do.
Okay, also make sure.
I'm not gonna say what you said. We have a $2 million set aside in the budget, but we also have $3 million in the account that could be used for this. So there is other money to spend. We don't have to go borrow money to get it.
That's where I was going.
There's other, it's in the fund, not the budget, but it's in our, what account, PTF account, whatever, sitting there, that we can use it if you guys want to.
Yeah,
So
so
we have the funds to do it.
So there is funding available without bonding, there's, because the other thing is, this does not include furnishing everything.
Yeah, that's,
You
that'd
know,
be.
some of that, there's ways we can get that through state bid and things like that that can save us some money. But that's also a portion of this. So the reality is, all of the bids are over. Are total, which we expected because the engineer's estimate was over. My concern, two things. I hate to spend more money than we had planned on. The good thing is we have the $2 million that's saved, that's been set aside specifically for this purpose. My concern with not going forward is that if it's 2.5, 2.8, 2.9 today, it's going to be 3.9 next year. So if we don't do something soon, it's just going to get more and more expensive the further down the road we kick this.
And it is good.
10 or so years ago, whenever it was that we
Oh, yeah,
were talking about doing this, it was like 700,000 or 800,000, and now here we are at $3 million. So it's only going up, so I hate to not do something. We need to be responsible, we need to think about those things, but I'm worried to not do it because it will just continue to increase.
Susanna really likes
Maybe,
it.
I guess,
Yeah.
maybe it'll crash and it'll be free next year, I don't know.
It's lovely, it's a lovely building,
Anyway, you guys, thoughts, concerns, questions, whatever. I'll talk to them.
No. The numbers, in my estimation, in my world, they're right where I figured they would be. I didn't think the two originally would cover it. The three engineers estimate, I didn't know it was three, but this fits right into what I think it should be. As long as we've got the money, we don't have to float bonds or
Yeah.
do anything like that.
Kind of one of the things that I feel pretty good about is if you throw out the number one bidder and you look at the 2, 3, and 4, they're pretty close. All within, to have a tight bid like that, that means that.
You have $3 million in your $100,000 between the three. That's very, very tight bids. Fine with that. I don't know what you guys do. Suzanne did a great job getting us $2 million.
Well, that's the thing, it's good we've got it, because if we had to wait and go out for a bond, or try to increase the bond or try to get more money, we'd be hurting right now, especially with, because when you go out and get a bond, we usually bond for higher than we think, because it's gonna come in higher, but it'd be,
We need to find a
we
way
covered
to
it,
get a
but here
plaque put on the side of the.
we're just gonna put a picture up.
There you
Brought
go.
to you by Suzanne.
Ron,
Put a picture of
Angela. Donate it by.
No, you're not.
Yeah.
Maybe possible bias.
Maybe.
There you go.
No.
Okay,
Maybe 36 by 24
So,
picture.
are you looking for?
I'm looking
Yeah,
for any
any
questions,
motions?
concerns, motions, whatever, yeah.
You got anything, Clint? You good? Okay, so your recommendations, Webster, they're the lowest of the three, but in the below low. I want to be fiscally responsible, but I think y'all know where I'm going.
Do I need to speak?
Like, I get it. I'm not gonna do anything stupid over personal feelings, right? But there's a lot of like stuff that I'm like, we're going through this again, we're going through this again, we're going through this again. Now, I'm a newer guy, so if you guys have confidence in it, I'll defer to your guys' confidence. I don't have a problem doing that. But I have to speak my mind, and that's what I thought about. So, that's my thought.
So, understood. Trying to think how to phrase this.
Tell me to cram it.
No, that's not it at all. No, that's not it at all. So I think that there are some really beneficial things to having a local guy. you know, a lot of his subs are local, we're literally providing opportunities for some people who actually live within our city. Now, some of them maybe don't need opportunities. I also recognize that. It's also good that he's local, and if something needs repair or something isn't right, we know where to find him. He can't really disappear on us, well, as easily, let's say. So those are good things, but I also understand where your hesitation comes from. I think you're not the only one that shares that hesitation.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Scott, the contract we entered into with the designer, is he not also project managing or no?
Yes, they'll be involved.
Okay, so we do have a project manager company that's outside of us that's gonna be watching and holding his feet to the fire.
That's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, like I said, I don't want to do anything stupid just because I've had a sour experience, but
No, like Jeremy said, we don't know what you're referring to, but I think we have an outside source that's gonna keep an eye on it.
They're over the construction management.
As long as they're learning lessons as we go, which I think we all are.
Question is he?
Well, no, that's why we're.
No, who knows? Yeah, geez, I don't know.
Okay,
Oh, man.
well, I'll make the motion then that we accept the bid from Webster Construction.
All right, we have a second.
I'll second that.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, there you go. Let them know. And tell them to get it built yesterday. We should be halfway done there.
In our contract with them, do we give a timeline for after notice to proceed? Obviously, weather permitting.
Yeah, it'll be 42 weeks. From notice to proceed.
Okay. All right.
It's go time.
Get it built. As long as that thing is done before I'm done being the mayor, I'll be happy. So that's, you got the rest of this year and all of next.
The last two meetings, you referenced that, so is there a hidden?
I'm just saying,
It's gonna depend on how nice his office is.
this city cannot tolerate me for too much longer. Let's just put it at that. All right? Pretty soon you guys are gonna have a gut full.
How big of a chair he gets in his new office?
Yeah, if I get the corner office with a nice chair, it might be a little while. But you never know. Okay, Francis Commons, Phase 2 and 3 plat amendment. Is this you, Katie?
It's me.
Go. Pretty soon Katie's just gonna run this meeting.
Oh, no. That's your job, Chairman. Okay, so, we recorded the Francis Commons Black plats back in November. Shortly after they were recorded, when Ivory Development applied for building permits for the townhomes, it was discovered that some of the end units, the lots were too small and couldn't meet the required setbacks, which we've all been through tonight already. So along with the setback change, which will help us have differentiated units, they're also looking at changing the lot sizes on the end units to accommodate the building setbacks. So anyway, so some of the lots are gonna get bigger, some are gonna get a little smaller. That's what they're looking at doing with this plat amendment. I reviewed the plats along with the city codes that pertain to these sections, these zones, and they are in accordance with state and local code. They've made any of the changes we asked them to, which were very minimal, but they made them. And they've also incorporated the county's review comments. So I feel like these are ready to go forward. So my recommendation is to approve the amended plats because they meet our code. The planning commission also reviewed this item at their last meeting in January, and they are forwarding it to the city with a unanimous positive recommendation. So just as a refresher, the plats that we're looking at amending are phases 2 and 3. This is State Road 32 and Scenic Heights Road. So phase 2 is to the north and phase 3 is the south. These are all townhomes, and then there's the city center portion at the front, which is a separate lot. And that will have the commercial and mixed use. But
Which lots are changes? All of them?
So let me show you. So on the amended plats, we only show what's changing. So like all of these ones in the dotted lines, they're not changing, so we're not amending the plat for them. But in this one, this end unit here is getting a little larger, and then this lot is getting a little bit smaller, just a tiny bit. And then in the phase 3, the end units here are getting larger. This is staying about the same size, the commercial lot, or the city center lot staying about the same size, changing shapes slightly. The end units, 311, 314, 302 are getting a little larger, and then the center units are getting a little bit smaller. The lots are getting a little smaller. So this will help accommodate the setbacks they need on those end units. That's it for me. Ivory is here. They can talk about this and these plat amendments as well.
I don't want to take up much of your time. Katie did a great job. Just to clarify, nothing on the ground is changing from the site plans. This doesn't change the buildings or their placement. We're just moving lot lines that we had this adjustment or the setbacks. So,
Right. The layout's all the same.
No, I mean, yeah, I agree. Okay. All right, any questions, concerns, thoughts from council?
I just have one question. It's phase 2 and 3. Do we have a time frame as to when those might start? I'm more interested maybe in the commercial stuff up front,
The city center.
the city center. Do we have an idea when you're gonna?
so we don't actually own,
You know, on phase 2.
yeah, so we don't actually own the commercial portion right there. Gentleman by the name of Rick Graff was also a signer to this plat. In fact, I did talk to him when he was signing the plat. I know that they're actually, that he's having conversations with the user now. I can't speak to his
Okay.
timelines.
Perfect. I was just,
As far as the southern portion, Amro, my colleague from Ivory Innovations, which is our nonprofit corporation, is actually working on plans. They're in the very initial phases of plans now. That will be like the remainder of, I'm sorry, we have 2 different townhome types in this phase. Some of those will be deed restricted affordable. This is apart and separate from kind of the conversation you had today. So I don't want to link those up. It will also have an element like that because that's a requirement of the Ivory Innovations Corporation.
got it.
So that they are working on plans that will include some affordable housing as a plan.
So where this is our city center project in lot 2301, they're gonna be back here and we're gonna look at architectural, site plans, landscaping, all of that is required for that portion. It's not required for the townhome portion, but for the 301.
Right, okay.
So
I'm
we'll
just
do that.
excited to get some commercial in there.
I know, I think we all could
Yeah.
like to see that.
I agree. All right. If there's no other discussion, I'll take a motion on that deal.
I'll make a motion that we approve lot size changes.
Plat amendment?
Plat amendment, I'm sorry. For Francis Commons phase 2 and 3.
Okay, got a motion, is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, that's unanimous. All right, Route 32, final plat extension.
All right, so.
Again, Katie. Okay.
So Route 32, that's the project that West Harwood is doing. It is on the southeast corner of Page Lane, which is called myself and SR 32. The name of the parcel is F228. It is just
Thanks,
north of the storage units, primary storage, just for location. Previously, we've come in and gotten final plat approval. So we approved this plat for them to subdivide the parcel into commercial lots. They did that back in November of 2022. We have that requirement we talked about before. They have 1 year to record. No one is making that requirement. I'm going to look at changing it. Just haven't gotten to it yet. They're asking to extend until November of 2025. This last year, they spent a lot of time in engineering. It's taken a while to get all that done, so they haven't been able to start with working on engineering. They think that if they do end up subdividing, I'm not sure if they will actually subdivide this commercial piece. They decide to sell lots to subdivide it. I think that will happen in the next couple of years. They are going to start pulling building permits soon to start working on the commercial buildings. They don't have to do the subdivision first, unless they decide to sell lots.
Right.
So, my recommendation is to grant the extension as they requested, because it still meets the requirements of our city code. Nothing has changed there. We've been working with them over the past year, especially Scott on the engineering portion, and they've shown good faith and continue with the project. So my recommendation is to approve the extension.
Okay. Comments, questions, concerns?
My only question or concern would be, all the other ones that came before us, developers, they've only requested a 1-year extension. And he's requested 2. Is that normal, or is it something we should be concerned about?
I think it's because he's actually, we held a pre-construction meeting with him yesterday. He's wanting to get started, and he's gonna start building on the 2 lots up at the front. And so he's gonna get that in, and I think he's just trying to decide whether he's gonna own them all or sell them all. So, yeah, so if he keeps them all, he really doesn't have to subdivide, he just has to meet the engineering requirements, the site plan and all that. He can build it, full building permits because he's the owner of the property. But, so I think he's just trying to decide, I want to get some build and see if I've got people that actually want to buy, or if I'm just going to do it myself and lease them out.
Right. Okay. So, I mean, I have the same concern, and this is why I should just extend this for another 2 years, but on the other side of that, I hesitate to not grant those extensions because I don't want them to die.
Well,
I don't want the projects to die.
and the thing that I don't want to say give up, because you never know, but they are wanting to start construction and get the water line and the sewer line in starting in the middle of March, so. Contractor's ready to go, he's just gotta get his permits.
I guess that's what I'm saying, is I would like, I mean, granting this extension for 2 years helps the project to continue moving along and not just falling into space. I mean, I don't know if it does or not, but that's one of my concerns. I don't want any more projects that just crash. We have some half-finished freaking mess. If we can help them continue to move along without hurting ourselves, great.
Scott, I want you, Scott, belay my fears though, because he says he's wanting to get started. I was just worried it was just going to sit there for 2 years.
Yeah,
Okay, and I didn't want that.
agreed.
I don't want to stop the project, I really want to see it go, but if he's continuing on and he's going to build the first 2, then I'm fine with it.
We talked about, some of the other projects that maybe, not necessarily for this one, but did we ever get anywhere with, if they do renew it, having it more than just a $100 application, just, is there some sort of fee to incentivize them to keep it moving? But like Mayor said, we don't want to kill it.
Yeah, so kind of like what Scott said, I think there's, a difference between the residential projects and the commercial projects. I can understand wanting to keep those residential projects going because we don't want to end up with another situation like Circle T. And that's why we have this in the first place, because then we can say, nope, this is done. It doesn't meet our codes anyway, and we want you to start from scratch, and we want you to bring us something that actually fits our new code.
Right.
So that helps keep things current. Commercial, like Scott said, they're not required to subdivide. They could put all these buildings, 8 buildings in, and not have any subdivision at all. They could all be owned by one person. So in this case, where I don't see any changes to our code that are gonna make this,
Right, okay.
where they could just come back in and reapply, I don't really see a downside to approving that extension. Other than it's a pain for us to have to look at it again, but we do want to make sure that it will expire at some point. We don't want to hang over us forever.
Okay. All right, good enough. I'll take that motion on that if there's no further discussion.
I'll make a motion that we approve, the extension for, what do we call that, Route 32? Route 32 to record as plat.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
And we can look at that, the extension fee, probably like, when we're looking at the fee and rate ordinance, maybe that's something you can try to remember to look at that and see if we wanna, increase the fee for that. I think that's a good point, because $100 is like, there's no incentive for them to
Right,
keep
no big
going.
deal. Okay, next thing is this public entity resolution. This is just a formality to add Antini, correct me if I'm wrong here, formality to add Antini to the PTIF accounts. So as the treasurer, so she has access to those accounts, the PTIF accounts where the money for the city is kept. So again, just a formality that the state requires of us, so I'll take a motion on that.
A motion we pass public entity resolution 2024-01.
Is it 01 or 02? This says 02, but the Dropbox says 01. Is that what it is?
That's what it said there.
This one says 02.
It should be 02, because 01's the general plan.
Okay.
Sorry.
Motion we pass public entity resolution 2024-02.
Perfect. Second.
I'll second.
Too late.
So you're calling for what?
Well, I mean, I could have been, but I didn't.
Aye.
One of us seconded it. It's all good, it got seconded. All right, all in favor? Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay, I already signed that earlier, if it was passed down.
That's all right now.
Okay, we got that. Anything Frontier Days we need to discuss right now?
You asked me to reschedule the
Schedule,
last
yes.
meeting, so I didn't have that on Dropbox.
I saw that.
Perfect.
Perfect.
Is there anything on there we don't want to have? Or do we want to change? Huh? Put concessions, Clayton.
Keep my mouth shut.
Put a line through consent.
There you go, it's just like, all right, I nixed that sucker.
Yeah, this is exactly the same schedule we had last year, just changing the dates.
We're good with as much music as we're having, right? I know there was a concern, I don't know if it was last year or the year before, that they weren't well attended at certain times.
So, yeah, I mean, I don't know, I guess that's up for discussion. Me personally, I'm thinking that, I think this year would be the third year in a row we've stayed pretty consistent. And maybe things will start to change with the consistency.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I don't know that, but I wonder
Right.
if you know that that's what's gonna happen and things aren't changing and we keep that consistency. So maybe let's see what it looks like this year. I don't know, again, I think that's open for discussion, that's kind of one of my thoughts.
I think that makes sense.
Did we want to, we made any headway with committees? I know a couple of people that are willing, 2 or 3.
Okay, I got one, I got a maybe. So I'll pin her down, but that's where I'm at. So anybody else got any? You said we got, how many?
We got 2, maybe 3, but 2 solids for like to help with the activity stuff.
Okay.
I haven't found any.
I'll keep resounding no's. There was an adjective in front of that.
Resounding.
Resounding no's.
A resounding adjective too.
Yes.
You guys probably want to figure out if we're doing the same things over the same things, if you're gonna change that. So we can get a schedule ready for that,
What?
like your duties.
Oh,
Are you gonna keep the same duties as last year, or are you gonna change things? How are you gonna do that?
I'm good with that. Especially if
Why are you
there's
talking?
concessions.
Clay, it's a concessions or national anthem for you, so.
I'll sing.
Dang!
I'll back him up. We'll screech and holler, but when after that's done, we're done.
Yeah. Clear the place.
I can take some embarrassment for 10 seconds,
Right.
20 seconds singing.
You found the track, you can understand.
I'm good with
Just
the,
comfort for a minute rather than days.
right, I'm good with the arrangements as they are, so, but to be clear, that does not mean that if you are over the concessions, you have to run the concessions, it just means you have to help find the people.
Bob said he's gonna help this year.
Yeah, I think my brother, yeah, hopefully he's not listening, but I think he committed, so if he did, that'd be cool, but whatever. We do have some people that are willing, so I think the best way to do that is to give that to them and then help them along the run.
Be supportive.
Right. Yes. So, yeah,
Yeah, that's what I mean.
go ahead.
In regards to the, our veterans portion.
Yeah.
What are our thoughts on like a veteran spotlight, maybe one or two local veterans? And get some information from them, and I think one thing I wish we did last year was people stand up, branch of service. I think it's good, it kind of builds some, good for kids to see
Yep.
some of these older people that served. So that, I think is a must, but I was thinking a lot about, maybe having a couple veterans come out in the wagon and the announcer kind of give a brief sketch about them and their service.
No, I think something like that's fantastic.
I think it brings the heritage and the history kind of even more than just talking about stuff, so.
You write your own, or just Courtney and write it for you?
That's why he's over.
We have had in the past, the veterans stand up, they'll say each.
Yeah, no, I think just last year we didn't, and I regret doing that, because I think that there's it's cool. I think it's
It makes
good
it
to see
feel
that.
good.
Yeah, so that, and then, but yeah,
No, I think that's great, yeah.
I'll try to.
I like to have that, and I like to change it up some, so that it keeps it interesting, and I think that's a great way to do that, so. I don't know, I think that's great.
Cool.
Yeah, okay. Let's, by this March meeting, I think I said this last time, but for this meeting, but by this March meeting, let's see if we can get this committee together, see if we can get them here, and then we can start giving them direction.
And we wanted how many? 4?
What did we say, 5 or 6 or something, did we say total? I don't think we want 100.
But we wanted,
Yeah, so I mean, if he's got 2 and I've got 1, that's 3, maybe 4, so we could use 1 or 2 more.
1 or 2 more, okay. 5 to 6.
And I'll work on that, because I think we'll want to get going on, we've sent letters for sponsorships, but we'll want to start looking, making those personal contacts and things very soon.
yeah, we have a list of people who have, veterans sent to, or people who've been.
We do have a list, can we just get someone to send that out? Or how do we?
So NTV does sponsors,
Or we do have a sponsor, I can give you a copy of the GL account that shows the sponsors and what they donated last year.
Well, we have a list
That's
of,
who we send them to. is the
we have that list. Yeah, we'll get it sent out. If somebody will remind me when I come in the office, we'll talk to NTV about it, because it's kind of her.
we have had some sponsors already. So Ballerina Farms committed, Rocky Mountain Power, it's platinum. Javier with Frontier Acres or Summit Acres, whichever you call it, he's committed as a platinum sponsor today.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, really nice.
Horrocks.
Horrocks, first one of the year, I think, so good job. Can't remember if they're already, but I think that's a nice organization.
I have a commitment from, I haven't seen it, but I had a commitment from, Landmarks West also. So I don't know what that is yet, but they did commit, so. All right, council reports, anything?
I just had a quick question. Just looking over the general plan, like if this comes up in the community every once in a while, has anyone ever inquired about acquiring the Mitchell house right there on the corner?
Yeah,
You mean the
so
city acquiring?
Huh?
people ask me literally almost every.
Yeah, right?
I have their phone number on my wall, and people who own it, or not their phone number, their email, because they said they're really not interested in selling, but, if someone wants to email us, then we'll look at it. So that does happen quite a bit. A few years ago, when Byron Eames was the mayor, there was a point, where we were doing some code enforcement on that property because it needed some maintenance. And so I talked to the property owners face to face. They did express that they would like to do a commercial project at some point. And the timeline they gave me was like 2 or 3 years, and that was 3 years ago. So,
I know it got taken off the registry too.
that's what he says, they took it out of the historic registry because it has some structural issues. But when Byron was the mayor, when we were doing that code enforcement stuff around the same time, we offered to purchase the property. We wanted to do something there, and they declined.
Okay.
I'm like you, man, I would love to do something like that.
Well, would it make sense to try again? It's been a few
Yeah, if
years.
you want to look at that,
Can you?
he had talked with the
Is that
county,
the
I don't
record?
know what Byron
The
was,
record?
he was looking at getting funding from, but he was working with the county to get some like.
She wanted to buy it and restore living, and we knew it.
Well, somebody
I
at
think
one
one
time,
general store or something.
I agree. Well, it's in the city center, so it's perfect for that.
Yeah, so when I did talk to the owner, they said, you know, they're not planning on restoring it as is because of the structural issues, but they would use all of the brick in their new design. So,
I
yeah,
want to say there was somebody that had looked at doing something with it at some point. It's been years ago, but yeah, they were gonna try and restore it. It was like, they could do it, but it was super expensive. It would be so worth it. It would be
it
so.
would be really cool. It would be
I mean,
really cool.
it's gotta be somebody with, with some money that they.
Well, if you think Francis, like that's building.
That is grand.
Right there, that's
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
And if that's
That's
something
the
with,
affinity of Francis.
There's a way to do something that'd be cool.
yeah. I would have to say this might be legend, but I had a friend in school who's
Haunted.
related to the Mitchells. No, but it was actually Terrence Lowry. I think he's got a great grandmother or something that was a Mitchell. Anyway, don't quote me on this, but there was some stories about her growing up in that house and actually looking out the windows and seeing the Native Americans in the valley, and like, there's some history there. I would love to actually hear those stories direct, but, I'm trying to recall from 20 years ago or more, but there's some pretty cool history there. It'd be awesome. Okay, any other council reports?
Not a council, but since you're on council reports, budget,
Yeah.
thinking about budget.
We want another $1 million for the,
Yeah.
Put that in the budget.
Have you got another account that you're not telling us about?
No.
Be careful, if you're sitting closer, she'd hit you.
That's right.
That's what I'm saying.
I've already said
3 times
way too
today.
much budget. Way too much.
No, but that is true. Be thinking about budget if there's things that you see that we need to repair or invest.
so is this where we'd say something about like maybe getting shirts for Frontier Days or something like that?
Yeah.
That's something I'd be interested in.
Well, you can say it to the mayor, though.
Say it to him,
Yeah.
maybe some shirts or something for Frontier Days.
I agree.
It's gotta get your permission.
Some kind of uniform.
I agree.
No.
And we've done that in the past. It's been a few years. We should do it again.
I did get a cool hat.
Yeah, that's right. But, yeah, good point. Let's, don't let us forget that.
You didn't take it, I gave it to you.
I appreciate it. Sam would be in the concession with us had it. So-
Whatever. He begged me to go ask you for that hat.
I wanna help you.
You didn't punch me.
I was complaining, so.
I gave you mine.
I know you did. That was very kind of you.
Planner reports?
The only thing I have is, just heads up for our next meeting. It looks like it's gonna be pretty light on the land use side, which will be nice after this meeting. So, the Crittenden family, Mike Crittenden and Wyatt are looking at doing a subdivision, their property, 7 lots for their grandkids. What they told me, along with that, they're looking at a zone change. We can talk about that more next month, but that's what it looks like it's gonna be on the agenda for me next month.
Engineer,
Where's Boxer,
it's right across the street from me.
Oh, from you. I didn't know who owns the 10 acres across from me.
It's corner of Foothill and 35.
Got it.
Well, yeah, it's a little bit south.
On the south, yeah.
Got it.
Actually, not Foothill, it's Willow Bay.
Well, yeah, it's kind of, it's across the street, but just barely.
Sorry, not Willow, yeah, Willow Bay.
Okay, Scott?
Okay, so the building, been working on that.
Yeah, well house built again.
Not yet. Speaking of water line, there's a water leak on the intersection of Foothill and 35.
No, there's not.
Yeah, there is. It's been there for a while. So it's about that was leaking last year, but without it stopped, and it did stop. And that's one of the things we were going to fix with this water line project, but we didn't get to it because it was in UDOT. But it's leaking, so we're just trying to come up with a way to get a valve installed, so we don't have to. Because the way it is, we would have to shut off the entire town, because the only valve we can shut off where the leak is up at the tank. And so we're looking at they can do what's called an insert valve, where they put a valve in an existing line. So we're looking at doing that. So we can get it next week. We're gonna have somebody up there on it, so we can verify the size and type of the pipe. So you see work happening on it there.
If you dip a propane tank upside down, you can freeze it and just do it.
Yeah. 10-inch line, I think we'll.
I've done it on
We're not
3/4 inch service.
I don't want to say experiment, but we're not gonna try things.
Okay.
So that, we're working on the valve, or the well. Got some shelters that we gotta get
Yeah, we got,
installed this spring
For the parks.
Yeah,
we got.
moving forward with the park stuff, we had 3 shelters delivered this last week. So we are looking at getting out a whole slew of basically requests for bids for concrete, asphalt, landscaping, stuff like that, just to keep using the grant money that we've been awarded, and also applying for another grant this next month to help finish that project.
Parts.
And then also, we got this map up here, just to kind of orient you. The main road is Highway 248 there in Camas. Those ponds down at the bottom are our sewer ponds. One of the areas in there is the Francis property where we have Ballerina Farms is going to, they haven't petitioned yet, but they're going to city council next week to ask the city council if they are interested in annexing them. They've got a project, I don't want to say it's approved in the county, but they're working on a project. It's all ready to go, but they don't have sewer. And they talked to Camas, they've talked to us about.
It's a commercial project, right?
Yeah. They talked to us about seeing if they could connect to our sewer, but we said, we allow people to connect to our sewer that are in our city limits. We're not ready to annex all that way out there, so they're talking with Camas, and that property is in Kansas City's annexation declaration boundary that they have. The line on the bottom is kind of where our line is. Back when we set up our annexation declaration map 20 years ago, we set that knowing that property was Francis. The only real issue with annexing it to Camas is we want to make sure that it's zoned, that we can keep doing what we're doing, and if we need to expand our sewer treatment, we want to build a plant, that's why we have the property, we want to be able to still do that. So that would be one of the conditions if we did annex, until we have to come up with an agreement that we can keep that ability to do that. So just kind of want to bring it up to you guys because it's just, they're going to Kansas City to ask. They haven't filed an official petition. They originally wanted to annex on the north side of the road and not have Francis. But the county owns a couple of those, not owns, but it's part of that your property that we met with. They are a little hesitant with annexing to Camas right now because they have a $6 million grant they're getting or trying to get that they don't want to, I don't know if we're hurt, but they're kind of not wanting to annex that until they get that taken care of. So that made them move over to this side of the road to try and get the Ballerina Farms. So Ballerina Farms, I don't know if you noticed, but they've started building the shed out there. And all they can do is build the shell, they can't do anything on the inside. So they're wanting to get going, and so they're wanting to get this annexation going so they can get sewer out there and do that, so.
There's really no, like, it's not in Francis now, it's outside of our annexation declaration, so it's likely not going to ever be in Francis, so it's either gonna remain in the county or gonna be in Kansas City, so there's really no downside to us going to Kansas City as long as we can maintain our,
Thoughts?
our use.
Yeah.
So what if they decide, oh, we're gonna build a bunch of residential in on Johnny's and Slade and it's like, oh, well, cool, we have houses right next to our sewer plant.
That's their problem, I guess. I don't know. But, you know, yeah, I mean, really, the county could do the same thing. It would just be maybe less density. We'll see where it goes, but
Yeah. I just want to make you aware of that. So.
I guess all I'm saying is I don't know that there's a reason for us to really fight about it other than to say, we gotta make sure we keep our rights on that property and continue doing what we need to do. Outside of that, who cares? Cool.
So, yeah.
The only thing I had a note of was the Dropbox, but Bob brought that up. Dropbox is, I'm not gonna say he has an illegitimate concern, but Dropbox is not the official record, so if you're relying solely on Dropbox, just know that it may not always be reliable. And so,
So Dropbox, when we set it up, the whole reason we got Dropbox is because we were trying to get away from paper.
right,
That you get your tablets, and that gives us a way to have everybody do stuff. It wasn't to keep records for years and years and years. It's, you know, a lot of cities that do this with Dropbox, you know, within a couple of weeks of the meeting, the information's gone, and the next meeting, material's there. So, you know, it's just kind of a.
So just a point of clarification, but we still have the digital files, they're just not in Dropbox or everything's hard copy?
Paper, yeah,
we have everything.
That's all in the cloud, like the
it's
digital.
all back
Okay, so if he brought in a thumb drive or something, he could get the exact file that he's asking for,
there.
or
Well, except
they
for
need to
that,
be put straight to
we're
a.
not gonna use removable media anymore.
Yeah, so because, so there is a possibility we could get them, most likely we would have to either transfer them
Or print
through the
it.
cloud or print them some other way, because with the state cybersecurity stuff that they're requiring now, plus the IT company and the city's policy, we have to change to where we no longer use, you won't be able to use a removable storage in the city computer because it won't allow it, because there's too much
Risk.
Right.
risk. And so we wouldn't be able to maybe transfer it from the cloud, or we would be able to email, things like that. But some of this stuff is gonna get crazy, but, so, long story short is, right now, you probably could put it on a flash drive, but real soon, you probably can't.
Okay.
Right.
You better hurry.
Yeah, I was gonna make it so we can't even, it's not even an option.
Well, and it's part of that grant,
Part of
it's
the
part
grant
of
at the
what
beginning.
the state's requiring and all of that, so that's why you get the
All
cyber.
knowing state.
Every single thing you guys get in this meeting, I have a copy of, it goes in an agenda or meeting book,
Right.
it's retained from.
We also have one for planning commission, and you're welcome to come in and look at that, whatever you want. As I found out this week, we all learned something new this week, and that's what I learned this week.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
And yeah, and council and commission can go get whatever records they need. I think within reason, you can't get personnel files.
Anything that we got.
Yeah, I mean, the
We're
meeting.
doing a
anything
meeting.
like-
There's
yeah, anything
like
that-
5 different types of records, and there's only certain records you can get, you can't get. like personal records or security records or.
Or secret stash on the record.
Right, secret stash. Okay, that's all I had.
There's a secret stash.
No,
No, there's not. I just said something I should have said today, that's all.
You'll notice, that you were given this disclosure statement. This is to disclose any, interest outside of the city that may be a conflict. So, you know, employment, if you're an owner in a company that may at some time be either regulated and or do business with the city, you should declare that. The good thing is, if you disclose it and you say that I have an interest, so like for me, I'll say my horse business and I periodically work for the 517 company, which is Trent Martinez. Then if anybody ever has a question, as long as you've disclosed it, there is no problem. So I guess what I'm saying is err on the side of caution. If you think there is any possibility that could be conflict, disclose it, and then you don't have to worry about it.
But normally I have these out at public meetings, I forgot about that.
Yeah, and so technically we should do this once a year. So that's why
And in the
that's,
past, I tried to do it all together.
so if you'll just do those and get them back to Suzanne. Then if you need to look at this check register. You want, anybody that wants to look at this, there's a check register, look at it, and then we'll go back to the consent agenda and get out of here.
We need to initial it though.
Yes, when we pass it.
Is there anything that jumps out, Bob?
You'll see on there the trailer that we talked about last meeting, it's been purchased. $15,000. Is the $15,000, server, is it on there? I didn't look.
Yeah, new server per
Yeah.
grant.
So that's grant money, it's there, but it's grant money, so.
But are the payment to the tank guy, they almost done with that tank,
yes. We're just holding a little bit
with the retention?
for them to come out and clean up and see.
I got you faster.
Too slow.
New snowplow.
Okay, so, on the consent agenda, I'll take a motion on the minutes in the check register.
A motion to pass check register and the minutes from, what day was that?
Just a January council meeting.
The January city council meeting.
Second.
Okay, third.
Perfect, aye.
Aye.
Send that to Suzanne, will you? Yeah, you did, did Clayton, didn't you? I thought I just saw you do it.
No, you said we'll do that when you pass it.
Sorry. I thought I watched you do it on.
Who's seconded that?
Me. So, hey, stop.
I go home.
Not till you adjourn the meeting.
Yeah, so now I'll take the most, important motion of the night.
I'll make a motion that we adjourn.
Second, aye.
Aye.
Thank you, everyone. I appreciate